everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk about Black History Month, the month that is a celebration of my people, because I am a black man and everything. And it's about all our accomplishments, all the oppression that we have gone through over like centuries of living in like America and stuff like that. And even till this day, we are still being oppressed. And so I'm here today to talk to you about certain characters or TV shows or episodes that revolve around Black History Month that I personally enjoy. So I'm here today to talk to you about Static Shock Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot, Shock to Your System. Static Shock was a very different and unique cartoon series about a young black superhero. What made it so unique was how urban it was. Normally when you see a superhero cartoon, they're always like predominantly white, and they're normally like a person who's like rich or like has a really good job, or something like that. But Static was completely different. Basically, it's like this. Combine Will Smith and Spider-Man and you get Virgil Hopkins, Static. Now, one misconception, his superhero name is not Static Shock. His superhero name is Static. But because the cartoon was so popular, many people assume that his hero name is Static Shock, which personally, I think he should be called Static Shock because it just has more of a ring to it. And, the cartoon was so popular that, it just resonates more with fans. However, despite being popular, it still got canceled after 2 seasons. One reason was the decline in toy sales, which, that's what happened to Young Justice and stuff. Now, when it comes to this show, the first season, I like the first season, but I don't like it as much as the second. The animation is a little crude on like the first season. Also, I don't really like his costume that much in the first season. I prefer it better in the second. Also, some of the storylines kind of got a little rushed a little bit in the first season. But like, for the most part, the pilot episode is a retelling of his origins from the comics. It's just tweaked a little bit for like a younger audience because the comic and the origins are a little bit more raw and stuff. And so the thing about a lot of people assume about Static is that people always assume he was a DC hero because, he came out with the DC logo in the show and they crossed over with Batman from Batman The New Adventures, and they also crossed over with Justice League and Batman Beyond. However, this is a misconception at that time. He is now part of DC, but he is originally part of Milestone Comics, a comic book company that specializes in black superheroes. But then the creator of like one of the people who worked there, he also worked on some DC cartoons. And so at some point they acquired the rights to have some of their heroes merge with that of like DC Comics and the shows and stuff. And then they bought them out completely. But for the most part, the only person who's really ever shown up is that of Static. Now, Icon and I think her name is Rocket, they've shown up in Young Justice, but as like minor characters and stuff. But Static's always been the biggest one of that Milestone Comics, very much like Spider-Man. And just like Spider-Man, when he gets his powers, he learns how to control them. He creates his own costume. He's a teenager in school going through the motions and everything of trying to juggle the life of a superhero and that of a normal teenage life in high school. And so he has appeared in other like medium. He's appeared in the Justice League Unlimited series. He's appeared in Young Justice, a complete retelling of his origins. But the best one of that is still that of his solo cartoon. He still has not made the jump to the big screen, which I'm very shocked, especially how the CW had the Black Lightning show. I thought for sure that dude would have popped up in at least on one episode, but never did. Static deserves to have his own show or at least a movie, but I don't want to see it on the CW. I'd rather see it on HBO Max, even though HBO Max doesn't necessarily make the best shows and stuff. And they have problems, but at least theirs are more hard hitting. And The problem with the CW is that it's going to be CW5. There's going to be big long-winded speeches. There's going to be these huge love story arcs. People are going to talk mushy talk and like all that foo-foo mushy talk that, oh, lovey-dovey, oh, you were destined for this and all that. And then because it's going to be a black series, they're just going to deal with black social like awareness episodes, and but they're going to be like similar to that of Black Lightning, but they're kind of like overdo it because that's what I guess one thing that some people, even black people, are kind of tired of seeing in black superheroes. We're tired of like it always being about like social justice or like black awareness. Sometimes we just want to see somebody kick some bad guy butt. And shows like Luke Cage and Black Lightning, they did that a lot where it was only about like the woes of a black person life. But let's show the upside of a black person's life and not always like the sadness to it, the oppression of it. Like give us a hero that is like a champion like that of like Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, who's just going around kicking butt and like, um does the whole truth and justice and type stuff. And it's kind of like, it's great to have those black awareness type things, and it's glad to have those social issues, but it's not like every episode doesn't have to be like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's one problem that a lot of people had with like Luke Cage is that it constantly did that. Then when Black Lightning came out, people just saw that as kind of like a copycat of Luke Cage and stuff. Those are important issues, but they don't have to like, have the entire series be like that. And so with Static, he has changed a lot in the comics. Now, just like in the shows, he crosses over with the Teen Titans and Young Justice and the Justice League. However, the new creator for the new line of comics, they've done something to him that's really pissing off fans and everything. But anyways, this episode, it deals with just, okay, it starts off with him being a hero and he's stopping some robbers. And he's new in town as a hero and people don't know who he is, but he's just some young black kid with dreads who's flying around what looks like a manhole cover. And he's just like, kicking bad guy butt. And he has like this witty sense of humor about him whenever he fights. Now, Phil LaMarr voiced him. I was shocked and surprised. I didn't know Phil's voice could do that. I think James Madison, he voices Ricky. So, like, now Ricky in this series, I believe in the comic he's gay, but he wasn't allowed to be gay in the show because, those times and stuff. So Dwayne McDuffie, he just put like an earring in his ear and just to have kind of like that. Now Dwayne McDuffie is a huge comic book creator. He was worked on a lot of DC properties, and he is the one who created Static Shock, the comic, and the TV series. Now, in this episode, when after Virgil gets through stopping the bad guys, he's talking about how like just 2 days ago his life was completely different. It was normal. So we see him like at his home interacting with his sister and his father, and his sister and him constantly clash. His sister's older. They're constantly clowning on one another. It has been revealed that his mother died a few years back, who she was a nurse. And so I believe they changed his father's job. He's a social worker in this. I believe he was a nurse, I believe, in the comics. I'm not 100% sure because I don't read comics. And so, like, we see him at school. He has this crush, a girl named Frida, which is similar to that of the comics. He's hanging out with Rick and Ricky and everything. That's his name. Ricky? Reggie? What's his name? I forget. Blonde dude, whatever the blonde dude's name is. So anyways, who later becomes Gear in the second season. And so like we see him getting picked on by a dude named Francis, but he calls himself F Stomp. Now the thing about Static, the comic and in the cartoon, is that it's very urban. It has ghetto-ness to it. The intro, In the first season, it's not my favorite. I like the intro in the second. Song by Bow Wow. Or, no, not Bow Wow, Little Romeo, I think it was. And so, but it's one of those two. I can't remember which one. Anyway, so, it's very, very, very urban in this show and at his school. A lot of the kids are in gangs, and this is one of those rare cartoon series where you hear actual like black slang terms and everything, or what some people call ghetto slang, and you never really hear that in any other cartoon. So that was very unique in this. And Francis, he's a thug that's part of a gang. Now Francis is white, and he calls himself F Stomp. And so, like, he's constantly picking on Virgil. He just doesn't like him for some reason. And so, this guy named Larry, who is in the gang, he protects Virgil. But Virgil doesn't understand why. Because him aren't friends. But in the comics, they were friends. And so, Larry looks after him because he thinks Virgil is very funny and he likes to laugh. And he sees that he's a little guy who's constantly getting his butt kicked, and he doesn't like that. So he kind of like takes him under his wing, which makes his friend very worried and tell him, you shouldn't be hanging out with that dude. That dude's in like a gang and stuff like that. And this is all shown on a kid's cartoon, which was very rare. And so like Larry tells Virgil, meet me at a certain spot and all this other stuff. And so Virgil does that after Virgil gets his butt kicked by Francis in like an alley. And they actually show him getting his butt kicked, stopped by this gang and everything, Francis gang. And so like Larry wants him to join his gang, and he wants him to handle Francis because he said, he ain't gonna always be there to watch his behind and stuff. And so Richie, I think that's his name, Richie, not Ricky, but Richie. So Richie's all like, man, don't be hanging out with this dude and all this. So he's like, all right, fine, I'm gonna tell him. So when Virgil goes there to tell him, they're in like some kind of like abandoned chemical, like junkyard type thing. And so he tells him, welcome to like the gang and everything. But Virgil, he's too afraid to tell him, man, I don't want to be a part of this. But then he hands him something wrapped in a bandana. It's a gun. Virgil is terrified as he knows he screwed up big time and he doesn't want no part of this whatsoever. So he tosses the gun in the ocean and stuff. But it's different in the comic. In the comics, he actually does take the gun and he is getting ready to shoot Francis and stuff. So a huge gang fight starts. It's Francis people against Larry's people, and the cops show up. So one of the gangsters shoot at the cops' helicopter. They retaliate by shooting them back. They shot like a smoke bomb. This smoke bomb interacted with the chemicals and caused it to blow up. All this purple mist and gas, like, surrounded the area. All the kids are coughing, they're passing out. Virgil was far away from like the events, but the gas still caught him a little bit. And he passes out and coughing as he's trying to jump the gate. After that, he wakes up in his room talking about, I'm alive. He doesn't even know how he got back home and stuff, but he was managed to get back home. And then it starts to happen. He realizes he's changed. Like things, like pieces of metal are clinging to him. And so he develops like these superpowers. So he calls Richie and everything, and to show him all his cool powers. He now has the power of static electricity and stuff. He has electric magnetism. He has the ability to shoot out like static beams of electrical light, like lightning bolt type things. He has the ability to make like metal things come to his hand, and where he flies on stuff. He has the ability to disrupt like sound, like certain like radio waves with his static electricity and stuff. He's able to do like a lot. That's one thing that's always confused me when I watch this show. I'm just kind of like, well, what exactly is his exact like power set? Because I see lightning come out of here, and then I see him put like a CD to his head, and he can hear the music just by putting the CD to his head and doing all this other cool type stuff. So it was one of those things that you just was on a ride for the journey, you know what I'm saying? To like discover his powers. And so all those kids that was in the gang, they got affected by the gas, which are now labeled as Bang Babies. Bang Babies are like the villains of this show. And pretty much anybody who got mutated by this gas became into metahumans. However, it's not just the gangsters that was there at that place, because what happened was the gas dissipated to like other areas of town, but it quickly dissipated out. But if you had the radioactive like gases on your clothes, then it would affect whoever came in contact with you. Richie or Reggie or whatever his name is, he was infected by Virgil's clothes. When Virgil clothes were contaminated, he hung out with Richie the next day. And don't know why he wore the same clothes, but whatever. And so this caused Richie, or whatever his name is, to slowly mutate by the end of season 1 and then into season 2. He gained the powers of like intellect, who was able to create like anything at will. And so Francis, he was affected as well, gaining the powers of fire. He now calls himself Hawk Street. And in the second episode, he is more dangerous than ever because he has uncontrollable firepower, just like he does in the comics. Now, in this cartoon series, they created a lot of new characters, such as Ebon and Elastic Man, or whatever he called himself, no, Rubber Band Man or something like that. They were created for this show, who are not in the comic. Now, one thing that was always kind of weird to me is how do people not know Virgil and Static are the same person? Because when Virgil was creating his own costume, he was just pulling things out the closet. One of those outfits was similar to that of Black Lightning. Him and Black Lightning hung out a lot in the comics. And so, like, what was weird was that he just took his regular clothes out the closet, a white shirt. He drew like a lightning bolt on it. He had goggles, gloves, and his own trench coat, which is blue with gold in it. That's his actual clothes. How do people not know that when they saw him fighting on the street? Plus, his hair is also a dead giveaway. It's in dreads, and he doesn't change his voice, and he's always making jokes when he fights, similar to that of Virgil. It's kind of like a Superman thing, like how do people not know? But in the comics, his costume was much different. His original costume was this all black suit with a cap and a mask with an X on it, and he covered up his hair. I don't know what his hair looked like in the comics because I never read the comics, but in this costume, you cannot tell who it is. But then, because the cartoon was so popular, they changed his costume now to mimic that of the cartoon. And they've changed it once again to kind of like cover up his hair so people won't tell like who he is. All in all, Static is a great hero. I mean, if you love Spider-Man, you will love him. And unlike Miles Morales, who's another great black superhero, is that into the Spider-Verse, they pretty much made it very similar when Miles got his powers to that of Peter Parker. When his powers started to kick in, he was outside on top of the standing on the side of the brick wall, and he's all like, oh, like, how did I get these powers? How am I like standing on the brick wall and all this other stuff? That came directly from that Peter Parker comic book. Him talking about, can people hear my thoughts in my head? That came from the Peter Parker comic book. So it was kind of like they changed that bit to fit more with Spider-Man to make audience kind of like him more. But with Static, he's his own self-made like hero. And he goes through the motions very similar to that of Peter. Like, he's worried about like tests. He's worried about getting the girl. He's worried about bullies. He's worried about people finding out his identity. He's worried about people hurting his family because of who he is. And, he is like one of the better like comic book characters of Milestone Comics, which is why he deserves his own movie or live action show. Happy Black History Month, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.